Warning. The following live broadcast may contain loud, obnoxious, shrill, and alarming noises that might be considered disturbing, if not outright uncomfortable to listen to, especially if you are wearing headphones. I share my office space with an African gray parrot and two parakeets, and I have no control over their behavior while I am live streaming, unlike my regular videos where I have the opportunity to edit them out as best as I can, and even then I can't. If you are sensitive to loud, surprising background noises, I recommend either not turning your volume up too loud or watching my edited, pre-recorded videos instead. There's over 700 of them in my archive. Viewer discretion is advised. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another edition of the Egoworks DRAWStream. So I'm trying something a little different with this one that I'm not sure if it's working very well. Streamyard has this option where you can do vertical and the horizontal mode at the same time. But in the vertical version, all I'm seeing is that they're just showing the same thing, but now it's like it's even smaller. So I don't know. I got to see if there's a way that I can like customize the vertical so that it looks kind of normal, but I don't know. It's like I have mixed feelings about this experiment, but you know what? We're committed for the next 2 hours, so we'll see how that goes. Oh my goodness. So yes, who's hello Joseph, hello, and happy birthday Jeremiah, happy birthday to you. Bada bangs, bravo. Happy birthday everybody. Well, tell Jeremiah happy birthday today. So oh, and yes, I see you, my beautiful eyeball people watching from regions beyond. Oh, there's a lot of you showing up today, so thank you so much. I guess the vertical's working then. I guess. So yes, so if you are joining me from any stray links outside of YouTube, come on over to YouTube, join the sexy people in the chat, join the conversation, and while you're here, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever any of my shows go live. Okay, so I think that the vertical I guess like doubles the numbers because technically I'm streaming twice, so I don't know. It's like I'll figure this out later. I'll figure this out later. So thank you. Oh, so Jeremiah says that he is actually watching on the vertical, so thank you so much. Thank you. Well, Satoru Gojo asked me to say Satoru Gojo. So welcome, Satoru Gojo, to the stream. So thank you so much for joining us. So I guess the vertical is kind of reaching people who I wasn't expecting, I guess, to show up. But thank you. So for everybody who is here for the first time because of the vertical stream, my name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, and you know what that means.
With a few exceptions, the characters on this program are weird and peculiar and not to be trusted.
And I am known for my furry fantasy adventure, Tall Tales. And I am the creator of Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, a medieval fantasy drama that you can read online at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. And you can also follow the link there on the website to read Tall Tales as well for free on the website. And also, if you hang out long enough, you can can also check out all my videos on how I make my comics here on YouTube at my channel at Daphne Lage, Lage Art. So please subscribe. And it also simulcasts through the Indie Comics Network. So if you're catching me there too, welcome, welcome. If you're catching me from Twitch as well, welcome again. And and yes, so so speaking of my comic Ego Raven, I have links in the chat and in the show notes that lead to the Kickstarter for, well, the Kickstarter pre-launch for issue 12 of Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn. So if you want to check out this fantasy drama series, you can head on over there, hit the notify me button, and you will get an email as to when the campaign goes live. So you can pick up issue 12 and catch up with the rest of the series as well. So because of that, that is also what's on the Cintiq today for, that we're going to be, well, I'm going to be working on and hanging out with you with today. So this is a page from Ego Raven issue 12. I am currently flatting it. So for those of you who don't know, but I will show and I will show more detail of this page when we switch over. So what I'm doing is I am laying down the base colors for the pages underneath the shading layers. So that's pretty much how I'm coloring this. So it's kind of like cell shading style. So what I had done up until this point was that I was inking and laying down the shading for the layers, getting through the pages that way, all 36 pages of this issue. And now I'm in the process of flatting them and thus completing the coloring for these pages. And then once I finish that, then I bring them into Illustrator, and then where I'm currently tweaking the lettering, fixing the word balloons, make sure everything is in position correctly, and then I'm bringing them into my final print file. So I'm hoping in about a week, if I continue at the pace that I'm doing right now, that I'll be able to send off proofs for issue 12, and then be able to have that finished issue so that I can decide when I'm going to launch the campaign. So I'm looking right now, it looks kind of like maybe like mid-March I'm going to have the campaign. So like I said, link is in the chat and the show notes, and you hit notify, and once I go live, you will get an email from Kickstarter saying that I went live, so that you don't miss out on anything, pledging to the campaign or missing out on the issues. But if you don't want to bother with Kickstarter and you still want to try out everything, I have updated my store. I spent, I think like last weekend, updating, putting in all my sketchbooks and my comics on the store. So pretty much everything that I have is currently available. So, so at least, it makes it easy to pick up everything. But, I like to give everybody options as to what they can do with my artwork. So you can either read them for free at the website, you can buy them on my store, or you can wait for the Kickstarter to come to launch. So, hey HR, hello, Ariana, hello, welcome, and hello, Jennifer, hello. Oh, busy. Today is busy. Well, it's been busy for me. So, probably like, I'm gonna do a little housekeeping for a bit before I get into the work, where I'll switch the screens over so you guys can see what I'm doing. But yeah, so like I said, for the past since February, it's like, what is it? It's like, I don't know. I'm making it sound like as if we're like at the end of February already, and it's only the 4th. So the last four days, especially, I have been really getting work done. I started working on all the commissions for House of Bob. I started to sketch them out. I think like I only have a couple, two of them that no, I can't show this. Yeah, it's like can I show this? No, I cannot. I only have one commission that I can show so far on the screen without worrying about YouTube freaking out over them and kicking me off the air. So this is actually, it might be better if I took them. So this is one of the commissions that I'm sketching out already. What I found funny is oh, hello Marie, hello, welcome. So the funniest thing about this House of Bob campaign is that for a furry centric commission there you go, there we go. That for a furry centric campaign, the first commission that I got out of the pile was a superhero. This is someone's role playing character, so they were asking for, so that's what they asked for in their commission. So I'm really glad that people are using this opportunity for getting commissions to kind of like expand what I can do, so which is really nice, so it's like it just kind of like gives it kind of like gives kind of just different things for me to work on. So it's just to kind of like mix it up so far. And and it's like, and I'm looking forward to working traditionally with these pieces. That's kind of like the main thing that I like about doing commissions is like I do so much digital work that commissions give me the opportunity to I don't know, just to kind of like go back to using markers and pencils and pen and ink. And I bought some new art supplies to be able to do these commissions. I bought like a bunch of rapidograph nibs for in anticipation for all these these pieces of artwork. And I bought like a proper, like a sonic cleaner, like the one you put jewelry in, because I heard that that was like really good for cleaning the nibs. So so I feel like extra prepared for this batch of pieces that I'm doing. Marie is asking, do you stream daily though, or just or just in a mood? No, I do not stream daily. No, unfortunately, I don't have the energy for that. So far, it's pretty much my schedule is roughly every alternate Wednesday, but I haven't been able to really keep that going. So, but I need to keep that kind of consistency. I'd like to, but that's kind of like the rough schedule every alternate Wednesday at 2 p.m. For about 2 hours. There's this artist that I follow, Visenia. Like she'll what is it? It's like she'll stream for like I don't know, like for hours. like I think she usually streams for about 4 or 5 hours. Depending on her mood, she will literally go all day. Like I've seen her stream for as long as like until like 7, 8 o'clock, depending on what she's working on. And I can't do that. I don't have the energy for that. So so I just stick to the 2 hours. I try to get as much work done as I can. But also the thing is too, is that is that it gives me an opportunity to just talk about stuff that just randomly about artwork on top of working on working in a Clip Studio Paint. So that's so that's pretty much so yeah. So I was working on commissions. Like I said, I updated my store. I did like some really tried to get some admin work done. These past couple of days. And and that's it's like, yeah, just keeping busy. Um, so yeah, so I guess that's kind of like I don't really have that much housekeeping uh for uh for now. I mean, so that's just pretty much it. I have the Kickstarter, the store, the whole thing, and I think I went all through that already. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to the okay. So there we go. So this is what I'm working on. So I'm using Clip Studio Paint, and like I said, this is for my comic Ego Raven, which you could also see, like the covers scrolling above there too. I have 12 issues of this 16 issue fantasy series. And yeah, and it's like now I'm just going to work on this piece just to keep it moving, because like I said, I'd like to finish this comic book work in the next week so I can get proofs done. And yeah, so let me just get the music started. So just in the background. Do this. Now I'm gonna do this. There we go. See what happens. Yeah, so I'm trying a little something here that I'm hoping is that okay, so hopefully all right. So I got okay, so I got my settings. All right, so I got my settings, and okay, so we're good. So as always, I have the music in the background. If it sounds like I'm competing too much with the music, you can go ahead and just tell me that, and then I'll lower the volume, because it's like I usually have my headset lower the volume lower than I guess what's on screen. So yeah, so if it sounds too loud, just tell me. So yeah, so let's see. So okay, so let's start with, so as you can see here, so this is essentially what the flatting starts off as. It's literally just me putting it's what it is. It's like I'm putting the flat color onto the page, and then I have these separate layers that I add on top of it that will give me the shading and the highlights that that finish off the piece essentially. So when that's the wrong mode for that. Okay, that's the highlight. So if when I change the highlights, so this is kind of that section is it is going to show you what kind of like what I'm going for here. So the thing is, though, I usually shut them off, those layers, so that I don't know, I find them a bit distracting when I'm trying to add the flats in. Also, for a lot of it too, I usually use a magic wand tool to select the area, and if the shading or the highlights layer is active, it interferes with the selection. So I just keep all of that off in order to just fill in everything. So like that. So yeah, so the thing that also makes this very easy for me to flatten, to add in the colors. When I was teaching myself how to digitally color for comics, the one thing that I learned really, really quickly is to learn to limit your color palettes. Because if you have like, it's like you have the entire rainbow to choose from, to color your work, but that also results in a lot of decision fatigue. That when you're trying to finish a project in a decent amount of time, you really don't want to waste your time trying to like decide between like different shades of blue, or just to fill in, just to color in a character in the background. So what I did was I made sure to limit certain palettes to like as basic colors as I can. So again, I don't have to choose anything. But I work with several different palettes. Like I have a palette specifically for hair color. And as you can see here, it's like, it's not a lot of color, but it saves me a lot of time when I'm doing like a lot of background characters, especially. And these particular pages do have a lot of background characters. So being able to just, oh, hey, friend. So just being able to, to just randomly pick a color and call it a day really saves me a lot of time. And I also have a palette just for skin tones, if you could see like right here. And it's the same thing where it's like, it's just very nice to just be able to just randomly pick a color and then, just put it in, and there we go. It's like, we're done. We're pretty much done. But the one palette that I'm pretty fond of, that I made based on some articles that I read, is I have a palette specifically for medieval colors. So like medieval fabric colors specifically. So these are colors that actually were used during the so-called medieval period. And and these are like all made with natural dyes or whatever. Like, so there was a particular blog that I was following where these people, this woman in particular, like she makes, what is it? Archaeologically accurate. So we're not talking about historically accurate. That's actually a different criteria. So what she's talking about is archaeologically accurate clothing, and she dyed her own fabrics, her own threads, her own, for that in particular. And she had this entire chart of all the threads, of all the different wool threads that she made, and the dyes and what the dyes were made of. And I took that chart and I made my own swatches of it so that I can utilize that in the pages. So I could just like, so knowing that all of these colors are technically accurate to, I guess, like this pseudo anachronistic medieval period that I'm working with here in the story. Hold on, let me just lower that a bit. Just lower. There we go. So again, it's like, it's just nice to be able to just like not have to think too much about color while I'm trying to color, essentially. you know. Um, and it really does save me a lot of time. You know, because it's like where we're at in the story right now, there's a lot of background characters now. And just being able to get through, drawing them, having to draw them is annoying enough. But just being able to have like just all of these colors just already like pretty much just chosen for me, so I don't have to worry about it. Like I said, just makes it like really easy to get through the flats. I used to hire somebody. Have you read Paper Girls? No, unfortunately, I haven't. Although I know, I know that there's a copy of it in the house. I know that there's a copy of it in the house. I just haven't gotten to reading to it yet. Let's see. Oh, okay. Okay, let's do this. So there's this. I was having a conversation about storytelling, because along with the comic. Along with the Eagle Raven comic, I'm also writing a novelization of it. It's like, if you remember, like back in the day, I don't know if they still do this, like when a movie comes out, that they did a novelization of it, like an actual novel based on the movie. It's like, I'm pretty sure they still do. And, what I liked about those books is just how they just expanded the lore and the story. And, they gave you a lot more information that, of course, in a 2-hour or sometimes a 3-hour movie, it's really not enough time. It's like, it's not enough space to give you everything about the story. Like, it's like, I'm sure like the more famous examples is, like people still complaining about what got cut out of the Lord of the Rings movies, but it's like, hey, nobody's stopping you from reading the book if you wanted, and you get all the information there. You can read about Tom Bombadil, for as long as you want if you read the books. You don't have to, you can stop complaining about, the fact whether he's in the movie or he's not in the movie or anything, right? So I'm doing, so I decided that it would be an interesting thing to do for for my comic, is to do a novelization, which gives me a lot of opportunity to bring in a lot of scenes and lore and just like additional story that I can't necessarily do in the comic without it being way too long. I mean, 16 issues is long. It is long enough for me. I started publishing this in 2021. I did the first Kickstarter for the first issue in 2021, and here we are 2026, and I'm just finishing up issue 12. Although I do have all 16 issues finished, well, completed in terms of layouts, so they're drawn out. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just inking and just finishing the pages, but it's done. Essentially, it's done. I know what I'm, I know where the story goes. I know where it ends. I'm just inking it and hoping that by the end of 2027 I will have the last of these issues out. So here we go. So this panel, right? So this is what it looks like completely flatted. So this is all the flat colors just put in, right? So now when I turn on the shading, now it looks like the way it's supposed to look. But I still have an extra layer to put in because the scene kind of takes place at dusk. So it is darker. So the colors are too bright for it to have the mood that I want. So instead of changing the individual colors, what I've been doing is I've been putting on an extra layer and then putting like the blue that I'm using to signify it's darker outside. So I put in this blue, right? And of course it just, it doesn't look like anything right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the characters first because this is actually I'm going to need 2 layers of this blue, one for the background and one for the characters. So right now I'm just going to cut out the characters in this blue color. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this out. All right, so I have them selected. I'm going to cut it, right? And then I'm going to lay that color back on top of the characters. Just pretty much, putting it back in place, right? But now I have the characters separate and the background separate. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the layer. I forgot what it's called, but I'm going to change it to multiply. And already you can see how it darkened the panel. But I don't want the characters to be that dark. So I'm going to go to just the layer that the characters are, and I'm going to change the opacity to 25%. So now you can see the colors. You can see the characters better, but the colors that I just put in, they're very muted. They're they're desaturated, which gives me the look that I really want for this scene. Had the scene been in daytime, I would have just left it the way it was. But because it's kind of nighttime, I want to show it without completely making it too dark. So just to show you what it would look like. So when I turn off those blue layers, you can see how the colors brighten up. But when I put the blue layer back on, you can see how it mutes the panel. So that's exactly how I want the panel to look. So we're gonna save that. So like I said, I was so like I said, I'm doing this novelization, which allows me to put in all of these extra scenes and all of these extra scenes and just and expanding what's on the page already. So also what it does is that for people who can't read the comic or they just are not into really reading comics, but they're still interested in the story, the novelization gives them the access to it without the comic, So because also what I want to do is once the novelization is done, I want to do an audiobook version of it so that people can actually listen to the story, um along with reading it. So it's kind of like so people can enjoy my story in different formats. um so my thank you, HR. It's he says that shadows of tree branches over the characters is a nice for a little horror feel, just an idea. It's like, no, yeah, of course, absolutely. It's just that that's kind of like, well, how can I put this? That's kind of like coloring. It's a little bit more sophisticated than what I'm doing here. So I still consider myself very novice. I'm very much a novice at coloring comics. So a lot of like these special effects and things that yet like probably more skilled colorists can do. It's like I'm not at that point. I literally just learned to color just enough for me to do my book. So, okay, so I'm going to go to this panel here, and pretty much that's just what I'm going to be doing, just shutting off the layers and then just putting in the flats. So there was so I'm writing, I'm writing this novelization, and right now I'm in very much the first draft mode. Where it's like, everything, like I'm following the comic while kind of like seeing what else I could put into it. I do have, I like extra scenes and expanding the scenes that are in the comic already, and also using that opportunity to talk more about like the lore of the world and just putting in more information about kind of like the story behind the story. Like another thing that I've been doing these past couple of days is I was like going back into what I had written already, and I was plugging some holes, some story holes in there, some plot holes, or however you want to wrong color, however you want to say, to call them, and just kind of like clarifying certain parts of the story that only looking back I kind of go, oh, I should have like that information should have really been in the comic, but I'm gonna put it in the novel instead. Just like tidying up. It's kind of like, the writing version of tidying up. G. There we are. Okay. And there was this like one scene that I was working on that I felt was like very, very important because it explained a lot of what was going on in terms of the background lore. And I found a space, I found a chapter where I felt that it's like, okay, it would work really well here. It could go, it doesn't feel like I'm just plopping it in the middle of anything, because that's also the thing too, like all the extra scenes they have to fit into the story. It's like, because the last thing that I want any scene to sound like was that it was shoehorned in. So that's something that I kind of have to be careful with. And this was one scene that I was kind of debating It's like, oh, does the story really need this? Does it matter? Or this, that, and the other thing? But then it's like I kind of remembered that, well, where a comic, you kind of have to be really tight with your story. You can't be meandering, or else you're going to have you're going to be drawing 100 issues, or and very few people actually make it that far. So I had to, when doing the comic, I really had to decide what actually matters to the comic, and in terms of flow and storytelling, without it being like this massive bloated mess, and then save the rest of that for the novelization. Because the thing that I've always kind of got the feeling for is that when people read novels, they're kind of okay when the story meanders. It's really not that big of a deal. Oh, and I have another page open that I'm using to grab colors, because I do have characters that are not random in these scenes. So it's just easier if I just grab their colors from the other pages. So so readers, they don't seem to mind that extra stuff, right? And especially lately, books are it's very normal to see a book that's like 700, 900, 1,000 pages, and it's just the first volume. Me personally, I kind of think that's a little too much, especially if it's an expanded series, because my whole thing is, did your story really need to be that long? Especially since I have read some of books like that, and it's the answer is no. Where I could tell very quickly that the story is only 700 pages because the story is so stretched thin to force extra volumes, that it's very repetitive, or it's the story doesn't go anywhere. I think, you know what it is? I think people don't mind meandering if it actually gets you somewhere. If you're reading a story and all of a sudden you get to kind of this odd part of the story and it just keeps going, but the information's not really adding anything to it, and it just feels this whole scene could have been taken out without affecting anything. I think that's when people get kind of restless with that. So, so I'm kind of self-conscious about that with what I'm writing. Although technically, as a first draft, I shouldn't be worried about that right now. The first draft is where, you're pretty much putting in everything you want to see in the book. Everything that's in your head, you put it out on paper. You put it on the paper, the kitchen sink, the whole thing. That's where you write everything you want to write. And then it's the editing part where the decisions have to be made as to whether these scenes merit the time, that they merit the space. It's not, it's the phrase "kill your darlings," right? And a lot of people misunderstand that as that you have to strip down your story to its barest bones, to pretty much take out all the character of the book in order to just tell the most basic story possible, when that's not really what that means. It's just because you like a scene, it doesn't mean that it does anything for the story. It's for the narrative, because a scene doesn't even have to like necessarily have anything to do with the plot. It could just be something, a scene that kind of like expands on what the characters are like, you know, gives you a little bit more information about the lore or something, or about the land, or the overall you know, it just adds something. But it's kind of, it's that whole thing where you have to like, you know, again, you have a scene that's your favorite, but it really doesn't do anything for the story. It's like, it kind of like, you know, like you're reading a book and then all of a sudden it feels like everything's grinding to a halt, you know, and then it's like you have this pause. It's like, oh my God, when does this end? Um, but you know, it could be, you know, but if you like the scene, it doesn't change the fact, even if you like the scene, it doesn't change the fact that it's stopping your story, that it's stopping the pacing. And I was just listening to an essay about the importance of editors, and how, you know, like editors, you know, they're there. It's like, you know, the skill that they actually bring to the table is knowing what serves, like, what is this story trying to say? What is this book trying to do? And the idea is that an editor knows, can look at, ask that question, and then kind of like be able to impassionately remove things, like, you know, like, oh, there's too much of something in this, so if you kind of like tighten it a bit, you know, it's like it'll serve what you're trying to do better. um and you know, and that's kind of like the dilemma that I'm in. But at the same time, like I said, I shouldn't be really thinking about this at this stage of writing the first draft manuscript. And you know, that also led me to like the whole concept of the whole thing about info dumping, and at what point is, like it's too much information, you know. And you know, and like not necessarily in kind of like a squeaky kind of way, but like, you know, it's like, yeah, we get, you know, like as creators, we get really, really excited about the lore that we create, and the underlying, you know, how the world works and the magic systems. We get into all this. Um, you know, we get into all this, and you know, the backgrounds of the characters and what makes them tick and why they act that way. And then it's like, you know, why the world acts that way, and you know why, you know, it's like, but you know, and it's like, yeah, and it excites us as creators, right? But at what point is that information necessary to the person reading it? Like, does it matter? You know, oh, I forgot to change the color. You know, and that's the first page of this issue. And it's like, I realized that there's a problem on the next panel that I have to fix. So I need to have that page open so I don't forget. You know, it's kind, again, going back to like Lord of the Rings, right? As the example, where, you know, there are people who can just watch the movies and enjoy the experience and never read the books. That would be me, kind of. You know, that would be me. Like, I have no interest in reading the books. As much as people may say that's like, oh, but you need the full experience. Like, really? Do I mean, it's like, I think that the movie was entertaining, the extended version, because I'm not a savage. Of course, we're watching the extended version. You know, like, there's enough there that I don't feel the need to get all that extra info from the book. Like, I mean, knowing about the Cimmerils, like, I could care less. I could care less, and knowing about them doesn't really add any more to what I already like about this, about the movies, right? About the story. So, you know, it's kind of like, okay, take it or leave it, right? And the thing is that, you know, like, those were decisions that Peter Jackson and his writers, I forgot her name, Fran something, I forgot her name. You know, these were decisions that they had to make. It's like, you know, what parts of the story do we just leave out? Because in the end, who cares? Right? You know, which that's what I had to do with the comic. You know, even though I'm a pantser, which means that I make up my stuff as I go along. So the lore for Eagle Raven wasn't as dense when I started the comic as it is now. Like, now it's like, especially with thinking about the novelization, like, I just added like so much more to the mythology of it, right? But like, in terms of the comic, like, there's no reason for me to kind of like redo anything to fit in more of this information. The story worked without it. So the fact that I'm making it up for the novelization, it doesn't affect the comic really. It's just like, okay, so now it's going to be in the novelization as all this extra stuff that somebody who enjoys that kind of thing, you know, they're gonna have, you know, that to go with. But it's not going to be like, well, why didn't you put this in the comic, or that should have been in the comic, or this or that. And it's like, they're two different things. It's kind of like the movie is a different thing. The movie is not the books. So, you know, it's two different mediums with two different expectations. So the expectations for a movie, the expectations for a comic, is that the storytelling is a lot tighter than like in the novels, let's just say, right? Which, to tell you the truth, I think my theory is that that's the main reason why a lot of comic book creators never finish their books. You know, where, you know, they start off with like, oh, I got a great story and this, that, and the other thing. And they kind of like, you know, they start, and the thing with a comic is that you could start with an issue 1, and as long as the story fits, you know, as long as it ends kind of like satisfactory for an issue 1, you don't need to know the whole story in advance. But the problem is that I think a lot of creators do that to their detriment. That's why, you know, and it's like, and that's why I could pretty much count it's in the single digits, essentially, the amount of creators who have finished, like they said, this is the entire story that I meant to tell. You know, there's very few incredibly few creators that say that I told my story. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, it's like, as they're doing their story, you know, they got their first issue out, their second issue or whatever. And then it's like, as they go along, you know, it's like, yeah, they're creating more and more of the lore. They're figuring out the story. It's like, oh, well, this would be better and that will be better. And then all of a sudden they start getting these conflicting, I guess, story beats that start getting in the way of what they're doing, of the story they're trying to tell, which, you know, it's kind of like, it becomes like, well, but this is part of the lore that should be in the comic, or it's like, but now the character motivations don't work because I just made this piece of lore up that I like, but now I have to change this, and and it's like, oh, now it's going a lot longer than than I thought, because now I have all this extra information, and it's like, and now their story, which seemed very straightforward in the beginning, now is just like this convoluted mess of plot beats and cool scenes and story snippets and lore that all of a sudden don't fit in together. And because like in the end they're trying to fit a novel's worth of information into a comic, and that's not how that works. So that's why when now it's like the advice that I try to give when it comes to like when people say, oh, I want to do a comic, but I don't know where to start, right? And it's like, well, do you have a story you want to work? Oh yeah, I got a story. So if they have a story that they want to start working on, my main piece of advice is to write out the story first before committing it to paper, like in terms of artwork. Get to actually know what your story is from beginning to end, right? Write a first draft. And pretty much my advice is write a first draft of your story from beginning to end. Even if it's just an outline or something, just so you know like where your story starts, where it goes, and where it ends. And I'm not talking about, well, the adventure, in the first issue, the adventure starts, in the last issue, the bad guy is defeated. Like that's just way too vague, right? It's like, I'm talking about actual details. Like, what are the steps? It's like, okay, what are the steps that leads from that beginning, that opening scene that you're doing, all the way to the end of all the way to the end of your story. Like, what are your steps that goes there? Like step 1, step 2, step 3, and you have to be detailed about it, because you have to know what's going on. You can't be, because if you're vague about it, you're only kind of like you're not going to really get as far as you want. So, and then the second piece of advice that I give is, well, if you've never done a comic before, try doing it as a zine first. Something simple. Just take some copy paper and like start, like, I don't know, like, look, if it works out later on, you can use it as a storyboard, for doing the actual comic, your layouts, but like scribble out your comic, do the stick figures and whatnot. It's like, well, this is how it's going to go. And it's like, and just do it as a zine first, because also, you want to see if you can even commit to the effort it's going to take, to do this type of work. Because a lot of people underestimate, like they get caught up in the story, and they forget that it's still work. It's still work to get this done. So, it's so that's my theory. That's pretty much my hypothesis as to why a lot of creators don't finish their work. Because also, by doing the outline and writing everything down and going from beginning to end, right? You also get to see, it's like you'll have an easier time seeing like what is important. Like if someone's reading this as a comic, what information actually is important? Like, okay, to give you an example, I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name any names. But I did recently as in a couple of months ago, I got this comic. I was looking forward to it, right? Because it's like the artwork was like spectacular, right? Fantasy book, the whole thing, right? Pushed all my buttons. And I got the book and I sat down and I read it. And aside from the fact that I'm hoping they do finish the book, because I don't know, it's like I kind of have this weird feeling that they're not going to finish the book, but they said they're working on a second issue, so I don't know. It's like I don't know how long this is supposed to be. So let's see, let me try something else. Yeah, that's better. And the story starts off with the info dump myth story. It's like it's the initial myth story. You know what it is? It's like anybody who does this, they're trying so hard to be like Lord of the Rings, the way it opens up, and so they're giving me this myth story, right? I guess like explaining their goddess or something, or whatever, whatever goddess the characters refer to, right? So, okay, they give me this myth story. I read the rest of the issue. And then like realize that whole first part of the book, that whole myth part of the book was so completely unnecessary that it annoyed me. That they went through the effort of making, of like explaining this myth that if they didn't put it in the book, it wouldn't have affected the story whatsoever. Because it's like even if you're not into fantasy, I think that the story itself, the main story itself, was simple enough. Oh, hey Lou. Was simple enough that people would understand the context, of like, they even say in the dialogue that this is the goddess and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, so they, we all understand the concept of organized religion, even if it's in a fantasy setting. So it's like, okay, they have a goddess they worship and blah, 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 so the initial info dump wasn't really an info dump because it wasn't telling me anything that I needed to know in the story. It's kind of like starting out. I don't know. It's like telling people you have to read the book of Genesis in order to read, I don't know, anything. It's like, oh, before you read, I don't know, whatever novel, choose any novel, you have to read the book of Genesis first. It's like, no, that's ridiculous. That's no, we don't need. It's like the context of your story should be enough, for me to kind of figure out what you're talking about, and I was just like really, oh no, Olympic curling. Well, surely you can have me in the background while they're doing Olympic curling. I can't. I mean, really? I can't be. I mean, you know. Um. So. So yeah. So it's like. So I was just like really annoyed. Right. Best combo. So, so I was like really annoyed by that. And the problem is that it made me question like how the rest of the story was going to unfold. Am I going to get like is this comic series going to be so bloated with unnecessary scenes like that? And it's like, I mean, I'm still going to collect it anyway, but because the artwork is just that great. But at the same time, it's like it's annoying, right? So so that's kind of like, when I come up with something that's that it's like, oh, I like, this is part of the lore, this is part of the story. It's like, oh, like this happens like this because of that, right? But is it really part of the story? Is it just like, is it part of the story, or are you just like giving me useless knowledge, pretty much? I mean, because unfortunately that's it's kind of like the equivalent of, yeah, it's like, yeah, useless knowledge. That's just what it is. It's like, is it really information or is it useless knowledge? Am I really getting something about knowing this, or are you just saying that just to like, oh, an interesting fact, but it has nothing to do with what you're reading, and that's kind of, it's like, where's the line drawn for that type of thing? Like, but then again, that's what the essay that I was listening to was talking about, the importance of editors, where it's like, we have a combination of like, like too much passion for what we're doing, and also being self-conscious in terms of like everything that I just said. It's like, oh, well, but what if the reader, it's like, will they really find this as, as informative as, as important, and blah, blah, blah. Like, an editor doesn't have that. They're just going to read the story and they're just going to like, you know what? This scene doesn't fit here. It doesn't fit, and it doesn't add anything. It just, and it's like, so they have that impartiality that that we as creators, it's like we kind of muddle through, like we don't have, of course. Melissa says, it's okay to have info dumps to keep to yourself, but don't keep them in the story if it's not relevant or entertaining to the reader. Right, exactly. And when I read this comic, that first whole scene, like I said, it was neither informative nor entertaining. Like, it didn't do either of those things. It just felt like, oh, they're just doing this to rip off, because Lord of the Rings did it. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to rip off Lord of the Rings, because it's like, other places have done it too. But again, it's execution. It's like, when Lord of the Rings opens up with that monologue from Galadriel, like, it really sets the mood. Like, I don't think the movie, like, if you cut that out, the movie, like, it would feel wrong to not have it. But this book, it didn't set anything. All it did was kind of tell me that it's like, oh, they're not going to finish this book, because they're just like, it's just way too, they're telling me they're not discerning with the information they're putting in the story. So this might be a problem. So yeah, so I mean, I know that I can't be the only person who's read a book and like bumped into scenes like that. And it's like, because also at the same time too is that somebody left it in the book for a reason. And sometimes when I see those things, I'm like kind of wondering, well, am I missing something from this? Like, if this scene is here, but I personally am not like resonating with it, like, is that a me problem? Is that a me thing? It's like, this should have been right. That should have been okay. Okay. Let me do this. But I kind of think that it's like, look, it's like, I kind of like to think of myself as well-read is not the word, but like I'm able to discern information in a book. Like I understand contextual cues. I understand, pretty much how to read critically, essentially, and when a scene comes up where I'm like, why is this here? Like there's I really do start to question, like, why did the author find this? Why did the creators, because I'm talking about comics, so it's usually like an artist writer combo, and most of the time it's the writer deciding that this is important. And if I can't figure out why it's important, it's like my next question is to like, well, why is it important? Like, I would like the writer to answer that. Like, why did you feel the need? Why was this important to you? Why was this scene important to be here? But honestly, I think that that's where the editor comes in, right? Where it's the editor that asks that question. Technically, me as a reader, like I'm asking at this point is just general curiosity. The book is done, right? So it's not like any information I give has any bearing on anything, right? But the idea that nobody on that side, in the creator side, asks that question. Now also at the same time too, I do have to admit that self-publishing comics is a completely different animal to traditionally published books or like mainstream books, which they do have editors they have to go through. Now, the discussion on whether any actual editing is being done, that's a whole different conversation. But the idea of having an editor is to ask the author, what were you thinking? Why is this here? What are you trying to say with this scene? And if I can't figure that out, you might have to either rewrite this or, if I can't figure it out as kind of like an uncommitted party, like I had nothing to do with the writing, I don't have the ego that the creator does invested in the book, right? Or in the story. So it's like, so the editor is asking, it's like, look, I'm reading this thing. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it's like, either you have, and which means that the average reader is not going to understand this. So either you have to rewrite it in a way that makes sense, or you have to take it out, i.e. kill your darling. You know, you may like the scene, but as an impartial viewer, this scene doesn't do anything. You know, so that's kind of really, that's really what kill your darlings means. You know, it's like, so you know, so but the thing is though, as self-publishers, we don't really have that option that it's like of being able to like, you know, to step back and go, does this really need to be here? You know, because what's funny is that, you know, it's kind of like for me, well, for me personally, talking about my own work, it's kind of like hindsight is 2020. And it's only when I'm kind of like having to look back on my previous issues while I'm finishing this, that there's some parts, but this is mostly for dialogue though, that the artwork, like I said, the artwork is kind of set in stone, but it's like, you know, for dialogue, I can still tweak it. Like there's still opportunity for me to fix it, you know, and there are some parts where I'd like to go back and go, why did I write this like this? Right? It's like, especially now that I think that I'm better at what I'm doing, that it's like, oh, I really should have worded this differently. Right? And maybe, you know, and maybe when I kind of like do a deluxe edition or something, I'll go back and do that. You know, it's like just kind of tweak a couple of lines to make them clearer. But you know, but yeah, but then it's like I ask, but the thing is that the fact that I'm asking myself, why did I write it like that? You know, it's like couldn't I have been more concise with that wording? Like that's kind of the thing that I'm really becoming self-conscious about. Is it's very easy to kind of like get caught up in being a little too extra with dialogue, with just like sentences in general. And again, I'm not talking about, you know, crushing everything to its base form. You know, I still want a certain lyricism to the reading. You know, and not everybody speaks the same way, and not everybody speaks correctly. So there's certain things that have to be forgiven. You know, but the context of the work should make that, you know, clear. You know, this character speaks this way, that character speaks that way. So, but like the more narrative text, you know, that's where like I'm beginning to see it's like where I can like really tighten up the verbiage so that it's not like a little like not that it borders on purple prose, but it's a little unwieldy, you know, and I'm afraid, you know, and I'm thinking it's like, oh, that'll add to like some confusion, like, or something. So yeah, so eventually, you know, I'll probably go back to some of like the word balloons that I know that really stand out in my head. It's like, yeah, I should fix that eventually. And, you know, and I'll actually do that. You know. But yeah, I guess what was I getting at? That it's like, you know, yeah, that like as self-published creators, like we don't get that opportunity to be asked, why did you do that? Like, what's the significance of that? Right? So we have to count on ourselves to ask those questions. And, you know, and again, it's, you know, we have, you know, because we're so personally invested that that it does get a little difficult to like know for sure, like, oh, is this really necessary? Does the story really have to go in that direction? Like why am I doing this, right? And yeah, so yeah, so it's like that's just something that I've been like kind of like ruminating on, like how much lore is too much lore. Like, I love lore. I love, it's like I love hearing people essentially talk about their blorbos. It's like, what makes your world tick? It's like, why did you, it's like, what interested you, in this? It's like you're writing this for a reason, and and it's like, and I like to hear more of that, but also at the same time, another dilemma had popped up where, I haven't been able to like, the reason why I like to watch artists' live streams, something like this, right? That I like to watch artists' live streams is because I'm able to sometimes, especially when they're on a roll with, I like to kind of like get into that creative headspace as to why they're doing what they're doing. And I'm not talking about in like a technical sense, right? I'm talking about the story that they're telling. It's like, why are you telling this story? And then it's like, and then they go on to talk about their characters and, why they chose these characters, like why these characters are important to them. And it's like, and I enjoy that, and it's like, and I enjoy hearing that, but the problem is that I keep coming across streams that are more, well, especially in our comics, in this indie comic space, I come across streams that are more about, the business side of it, right? It's like, it's actually pretty rare that to hear creators actually talk about their creation, like, and I'm not talking, like, I'm more likely to hear about, oh, I came up with this story because of this personal tragedy or whatever, this personal thing that happened to me. And then they're talking about their family and shit like that. And that's not the story. And I think, and there are creators, and there's like too many for me at least, who they think that the inspiration for the story is the story. And and it's just kind of like, it's kind of like weird, like me and Jose were talking about something called fake gravitas, where where it's like people want to like there are writers who they kind of like associate their story with something important, as opposed to their story instilling that, instead of instilling that in their story. Like, it's kind of like they want their story to be important, but they don't know how to do it. So they latch it on to something else, like something outside of the story. Like I said, the inspiration. And then it's like, it's kind of like, oh, but I based it on this. Doesn't that make it important? That's an important story then. And it's like, no, it's not. Again, going back to Tolkien, he always said that Lord of the Rings is not an allegory, i.e., he didn't base it on his, what was it, World War II experience. Was it World War II or World War One? I forget which. He didn't base it on that experience. It's not an allegory. It's like, no, it's like Sauron is, it's like, it's not Hitler or whatever, or however that was working. Like I said, as opposed to like C.S. Lewis. Okay. Melissa says World War One, the original mix. Yeah. Okay. So, so Sauron is not Austria or whatever whatever. It's like, I'm not remembering details. As opposed to C.S. Lewis, where Aslan is Jesus. That's allegory, right? That's and it's like, and Tolkien, this was metaphor. It's based on his experiences, but it's not a direct correlation. And it's not about, directly that, right? So there's some, so there are writers who it's like, they think that, oh, if I made it a direct allegory, it'll give my story that gravitas, but it's fake gravitas, because even without knowing that Tolkien fought in World War One, the story stands on its own. The story has its own gravitas. The story has its own importance. It's like, I didn't have to know that in order to know the story is important. Like what the symbolism of the war and everything, and the loss of the Shire and the whole thing, and it's like I didn't need one to know the other. The story had its own importance, right? But you see a lot of these Kickstarters and people trying to explain their Kickstarters, and I think I muted myself. Sorry there. I went to do a shortcut for this and I accidentally muted myself. You ask them what their story is and they immediately go into the inspiration. And it's like, oh, my child was sick, or this, that, the other thing, or, I got sick and based a story on it, or this disaster, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, that's not the story. That's not the story, which makes it irrelevant information. And, that I know that sounds, it sounds kind of bad, sounds kind of awful to say, but that's it. Yeah, but that's what it is. It's like, when I say that I want to know your story, the story, I want to know the story. What did you put your what situations did you put your characters in? What are they doing? It's like, sure, can you have stuff in your story that's based on actual things that you experience? Of course, write what you know. That's the other misunderstood advice, right? It's like, but I don't know. What am I getting at here? It's like, I guess it's like, yeah, just being like in this independent space and kind of like not having that type of traditional support that would allow us to kind of like see our story as a story, kind of puts us in these like really weird positions. Where it's like, yeah, we start info dumping without realizing that's like, no one needs to know that, even if it is part of the story. But it's like, is it really important? Like I said, it's like, is it really important, or you're just, you're just giving me, useless information. It's just trivia. That's what it is. Is it really information or is it just trivia you're giving me? And I think that in terms of the comic that I was talking about, that beginning scene was just trivia. And because of that, it was very trivial to the story. Because it did. If they thought that they were doing the opening to Lord of the Rings, they were very much mistaken. Very much mistaken. But again, it's like, one, this is the type of thing where it's like, if you're in your first draft, you shouldn't have to worry about, but that's the whole purpose of doing a first draft, so that you can see your story laid out and you can see better, right? It's like looking at a map, right? It's the difference between going from, telling Google, avoid tolls, right? Or telling Google, give me the scenic route, right? And it's like, but even if you're on the scenic route, you don't want to spend 50 miles just looking at desert, right? It's like, it's like, we've all had those stretches of road that it's like, holy shit, when does this end? And it's like, so it's like, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like, so yeah. So like I said, if I were to give advice, I would just like say, write out your story, outline your story in specific detail, beginning to end, the scenes that you want to put in, the cool scenes, where the cool scenes are, and, it's like, what is it that, and then it's like, so that way you can see it all stretched out and go, okay, what do I need this to be? And what doesn't fit here? What's important and what's trivia? Right. And honestly, and I think that, and I just think that because, we're so close to it, that it's like, we start thinking that every piece of trivia is important information. And because of that, it bloats out the story where you really didn't need it to. Where did here it is. And also the thing is too, is that if you do have important information, that please incorporate it into your dialogue. It's like, this is especially, because it reminds me of this novel that I had to just completely give up on. Like I said, a lot of questions. It's like, one, why is there a physical narrator for this story? Right? It's like, I see no reason for this to be narrated. Why is this narrated by a separate character who doesn't appear in the book? That was one of the issues that I had. Why isn't it just its own story? Never mind the footnotes that it's like, why are you doing that? It's like, this isn't an academic paper. It's like, just tell the story, but there was like this other thing. I think this was the part where it's like, you know what? I can't stand this. Where the author had this whole block of text explaining something important about the society that the characters live in. And then immediately after, the characters will start talking exactly about the same thing she just info dumped on. And I'm like going, Pick one, either info dump or put it in the dialogue. But honestly, you really should put it in the dialogue. It's like, don't info dump if you can help it. It's like, because if it's important information, your characters should be able to, to talk about it enough so that the reader can catch up. Your character should be able to dole out information in a way through dialogue that the reader can understand the context of what's going on. Because I would rather have that than the block of text. Oh, by the way, this is how the society runs, just so you know. So yeah, so that's kind of like, so the other thing, right? So yeah, so the whole thing about seeing these podcasts and and it's like pretty much most people are talking about the business side, right? And then it's like, it's like I was discussing this with Jose, where I was talking about, it's like, yeah, it's getting to a point where it's like, I can't relate. I'm relating less and less and less to these podcasts, to these conversations. It's like, the more I step back and just want to concentrate on finishing my work, and finishing these books and publishing these books, the less I relate to these podcasts talking about, oh, well, you got to do this and that and the other thing, and Facebook ads, and you have to go to conventions and this, and it's like I can't relate to that anymore. Like, I'm finding it harder and harder. And then it's like I realized that the common denominator of a lot of these shows is that most of them are writers who have to pay out to get the artwork done, to get their comics done. And because they have to pay out so much, their main focus in everything they do is the business side of everything, because they need to make sure that they get the return on investment so that they can reinvest in the artists to get more comic book work done. Or else there's no comic. They might as well just be writing novels, and they're not doing that, And and I realized that, and it's like, oh, yeah, that explains it, because it's like, they're not going to spend time talking about the creative side of this, because that's not what's important to them. They're doing their writing anyway. They don't need to talk about it. They just want to know how to, like, okay, how do I cost max, what I'm doing, and for me, it's like, I want to hear the creative side. Like I said, I want to hear about your blorbos. I want to hear about why you made the decisions that you did in your story. So I guess, like, what I'm, so in the end, it's like, what I learned from that conversation is that I have to find more artists to listen to, because we're actually doing the work. I guess it's like, we seem to be more in tune to the creative aspect of it, so we can talk about it more. It's like, we can share, like, oh, it's like, well, how did you do this technique or that technique? Or it's like, like, look, just yesterday I'm watching Vicenio work on, her cover for Celestial Pulse, and it's like, and she's doing things on there that I'm like all up on the screen. Well, how did she do that? You know, where it's like, what is she doing? What pen is she using? What do her layers look like? You know, and and it's like, and even then it's like, yeah, like I'm more likely to get a creative conversation out of another artist than I can get out of these writers who are just focused on business, 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 numbers. It's like they're kind of like that, yeah, so I don't know. It's like, so I have to like rethink about like, because on one hand, it's like I'm also like pulling back a little bit from social media, like to kind of like lessen the noise of, oh, you're not doing enough and this and the other thing and the algorithms and you have to post this, you have to post that, but if you don't do this, you can't do that. You have to spend $200 on advertising to make $1,000 on Kickstarter. I mean, it's like, just like kind of like lessen that noise. And so it's like I'm pulling back on that. So I pulled back on that, which allowed me to get a lot of more creative work done, I must say. And but I guess in the end too, it's like, it just seems like I also have to kind of like pull away from the type of people, like shows that I'm listening to, because it's all just a cycle of, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. If you don't do this, you won't do that, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, you have to spend $1,000, $2,000 to make 10,000 on Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. Like it's just, like I said, it's all like just business stuff that at this point is just nonsense to me. If you followed me for a bit, my whole thing about marketing is bullshit. At our level, marketing is complete bullshit. It's like, if you don't have the team, if you don't have the teams, if you don't have the bankroll, you're just one person, you're just you're just one person, farting downwind. That's it. It's like, it's not going to help you. All it's going to do is it's going to create this immense frustration, that you're going to internalize, when really it's the system. It's just how the system runs. You need money to run it correctly. And if you don't have that money, worry about the work, But again, it's like, I'm listening to people who it's like, the money is the important thing. Like it's almost like the creativity doesn't matter as long as, and it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I just don't have the patience for that anymore. Like, how can you, it's like, to listen to creatives who the last thing they are creative, when they speak in public, when they speak on these shows. Because the funny thing is that I know for a fact that they are creative when they're talking outside of the show. That's the frustrating thing. For some reason, they don't want to do this in public. And what I get told is that, well, nobody wants to listen to that. Or, it's like, well, those are the worst performing shows. And the thing is that I can't disagree with that. Right? Because in the past, I used to, bring people, creative people onto my vlogs and like interview them, and like, but interview them from the creative angle, not from the business angle. I can give a rat's ass about the business angle. I don't care how you run your business. Tell me about your blorbos, right? And yeah, those would be the worst viewed vlogs, which is saying a lot, because my vlogs barely get enough views as is, but whatever, because it's like, in the end, it's like I guess what it is that creativity requires you to be cringe. And we're in a space right now where nobody wants to be cringe. So, but business is acceptable. You talking about cost maxing your variant covers, that's okay. People will listen to that all day. But talking about your characters and what they mean to you and how you came up with them and their backstory, that's cringe, bro. Nobody wants to listen to that. The problem is that I want to listen to that. That's the problem. I want to listen to that. So it's like, I don't know. So it's like, so I just have to figure out like what exactly am I looking for? It's like, because like I said, it's like, it's like you see, and here's the thing, and here's also the other thing too, right? Because I don't want necessarily to watch a creator do tutorials unless I'm specifically looking for a tutorial. So so it's like, it's kind of like a little weird, like it's a little tough finding people who fit that criteria for me to just put in the background and feel like I'm in a room with other artists and we're just kind of like, talking about our stuff, but I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know, like I said, I like the closest that I get is Visenia, because she talks about all the fan art that she does and these fan stories that she's doing, and she's doing her artwork and all these different things, and it's like, like I said, I have her in the background, and then I'm doing my work, right? Although yesterday I was really, really grooving to her because it's like, she was working on Celestial Pulse because that her comic is getting re-released in like kind of like manga editions. So I signed up for the Kickstarter and she was just like kind of like talking about it, but she was just talking about the whole thing and she was working on Celestial Pulse and, and it's like, and I was like really grooving. I got a lot of work done. And it's like, and that's kind of because as it's it's like I want to, that's what I'm kind of like looking for. So I don't know. Now I'm just babbling. But in the end, as I write, let's see, like as I write these the novelization, right? It's like I always have that in the back of my head. Is this actually important or is this trivia? Because I got shit ton of trivia when it comes to Eager Raven. I have it all, like every time I come up with something, I put it in like this master document that has like all these lore points. Well, this is what happens and that's what happened, but it's like it has nothing to do with the stories that I'm writing right now. It's like there's probably stuff in those notes that is never going to come to light of day because there's no reason to. This maybe. Oh, yeah. Okay. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's because like I've just been feeling like really inspired lately. Like I said, being offline has helped a lot with that. You know, and it's like just sometimes I just want to like feel like I'm in a space where everybody is feeling like that, but I guess that's not the point. I guess that's not what's happening. So okay, so there we go. So we have that panel, right? So I'm gonna put that in. Okay, so again, like I did before, these are technically daytime colors, and I want more of like a dusk feel to it. So I'm going to put in that other layer. Okay. And now we're going to separate the characters from the background. Oh, need to add these people in too. Okay, and then we're going to paste it back. And then what we're going to do is change. Yeah, I forgot what it was called, like the layer or something. I don't know. So we're going to change it to multiply, and then I'm going to make the character layer opacity of 25%. And that gives me the tone of the scene that, oh, yeah. I've been collecting art books too. Like Neil Adams, Selby Seymour, Frank Miller. Yeah, it's like Magnolia. Yeah, it's like I've been collecting art books too. It's like, I don't know. I really do like the physicality of having these books in hand as opposed to like depending on digital archives. And it's not the same thing. It's like there's something nice about about like flipping through a book and really studying. I think like on having artwork online, it makes you treat it like content. Like you don't really, at least I find myself not really studying artwork that's in an online archive as much as it's in a book. When it's in a book, you actually kind of like lavish attention on the pages, while it's very easy online to just scroll. Just like, so yeah, I would, definitely, definitely continue collecting books, art books. Definitely, which is why, like, even for my stuff, it's like I've been putting, I've been doing the sketchbooks, and it's like, it's like, there's something about making physical books. And it's like, and I feel that especially nowadays, it's important to have that physical media, that you don't have to depend on being online to look through, that's why I like this process of creating a book and then going through the process of putting it together and then like sending it off to the printer and then getting it back. It's like, that's why it's like, when I get to this point in the process of making an issue, it's like, oh, I'm about to see a physical copy. I'm about to see a physical copy. I'm almost ready. And, and it's just, it's just really nice, to have it in your hands, but, yeah. So this is where I'm at in this page so far. I have the two more panels. I have to fix one of the panels. I actually have to remove the belts on 2 of the characters because it doesn't match how I have them dressed in the very first page of the book, of the issue. So I'm going to have to alter that. I have to fix that. So yeah. So I think that we are going to leave that here for now. Although me personally, I'm going to continue finishing this page, so that I can get at least like this and another page done. So yeah, before the end of the day. So, good grief. So, but still, though, I think that I was able to accomplish a lot today. So, that's what it is. Oh, thank you, Sunny. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's like I said, I want to keep my schedule of every alternate Wednesday. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. Oh my goodness. So okay, so let me just get back here. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today for this live stream. You get to watch me color my page for my comic. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Thank you. This is a very important. Issue 12 is a very important issue. In terms of like where it's falling in the storyline. It's like some major things happens in this one that's really going to set the tone for the next 4 issues, which is the last 4 issues. So yeah, just to think that I have 4 issues left. Once this is finished, I have 4 issues left on this series. So yeah, so thank you, Sunny. Thank you very much. So yeah, so that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for joining me in the chat and keeping me company. Thank you so much to my beautiful eyeball people listening to me in the background. Hopefully I was able to offer you what I was hoping to get from other people. Hopefully, some discussion about the process as opposed to business. Like I said, comic business talk bores me to tears now. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. So yes, I would rather just talk about like anything else, but it's like really. Yes, and like I said, while you're here, it's like please feel free to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below after the show if you're catching this on the replay. Like even though I kind of like poo-poo the algorithm, I still have to cater to them on a certain level. But talk to you later, HR. So please, help me do that. And I guess on the next show, I'll tell you if the whole running a vertical version of this helped any. I mean, there seemed to have been some excitement at the beginning, but it kind of tapered off. But I don't know. We'll see how the views go by having both a vertical and a horizontal version of the same stream. So I'll follow up with that and see what it is. So. Oh my goodness. Okay, where's my stuff? So, if you want to learn more about me and my artwork and my comics and everything else and my upcoming Kickstarters, you can head on over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com. That's EGOWORKS. Where you can read Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn for free. But if you prefer your fantasy to be more of a furry Lord of the Rings adventure, you can follow the link there over to Tall Tales. That's TAILS online.com. And you can read the archive there. It's over 1,000 pages. So it'll keep you busy for a bit. So also, make sure to catch me on Mondays along with Nita Lanning on the Rage Into the Vlogs show, where we kind of spend time talking about the business of comics, but we're trying to like, I would like to think we take a little bit of a different angle with it that isn't just the usual, buy $200 worth of Facebook ads to make $1,000 type of thing. So, so check us out on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can see us there as well. Also, don't forget to sign up. Oh, where's my QR code? Oh, I forgot my QR code. So if you go head on over to the websites, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, where you can keep up to date with all of my new art and sketchbooks and comics and Kickstarters and everything, free to your inbox. Directly to your inbox. And when you sign up, you will get a free PDF comics bundle just for joining. You get to enjoy Eagle Raven, Tall Tales, and the Oswald Chronicles for free just for signing up. And remember also links at the beginning of the chat for Eagle Raven, Air the First Unicorn issue 12. The pre-launch is live. Well, it's the pre-launch. So hit that notify me button so that you get notified when the campaign goes live once I finish the issue. So that's it for me. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And always remember, be better today than you were yesterday. And of course, be better tomorrow than you were today. Thank you so much again. And I'll see you next time.
You are all weirdos. Ugh.